What's good with YouTube? It's your man Cosplay Ray, and we are back with another episode of We Are Epic Cosplay. Still working on the Black Lightning Season 3 mashup, my version of course. So at this point, I'm starting to cut out some of the other pieces that I'm going to connect to the chest plate that we made in a prior video, and working on an abdomen section and the parts that will kind of connect from once we put the pieces of the spine and rear shoulder blades together. I'm cutting out the pieces that will connect from the spine and the back portion of the build, and it will connect to the front portion of the build, which will be obviously connecting to the abdominal area. Now what I'm using for this is, I think it's some kind of rubberized mat. It's a very thin rubberized mat. I can't remember exactly which store that I got it at, but it was like a yoga mat or something to that effect. Very thin, like about, I want to say maybe 1/8 of an inch thick, but it was a really good choice for connecting my back parts to my front parts and gluing the foam pieces for like the abdomen, muscles and all that good stuff. It's a really good foam and base to be able to glue everything else down onto. And so as you can see, I've cut it out. The templates, I pretty much made on the fly based off of some of my first builds and armor builds. I just used the same templates for each one of my builds because it fits me already and it's a good fit, so that's what I keep going with. So as you can see right here, cutting out the side pieces. Now, like I said, this is a really good material to use because it was thin enough to be flexible, and that's what you want. You want it to be flexible, but yet you still want it to be durable. And I found that it was a really good choice to use to connect everything. I started first learning how to build like this off of my friend Sean Zhang's videos, which you might know him as Zhang Prod, and his videos have been instrumental in my development as a cosplay engineer. So as you can just see right there, I drew a sketch of what the back needed to look like for this Black Lightning cosplay. It's really hard to find a really good image for like the back shots of these superhero costumes, but I actually had to watch the show, pause the show, and take a picture. So right here I am making some, I want to say, lifters. We're going to call it a lifter. It's basically the piece of the lower pectoral or the lower part of the chest, and I'm cutting out these pieces because I need to lift the chest from the bottom outward a little bit. It's all an optical illusion. So I'm basically lifting the chest out, and I'm going to use these foam pieces to kind of give it a riser. So it's going to go underneath the chest plate on the bottom, and then I'll connect the abdomen area to these sections here, and it will help to kind of make my chest look a little fuller. It's all on exaggeration with these superhero costumes and things of that nature. So these pieces are actually going to help push the chest outward a little bit. So like I said, it's going to make my chest look superhero-ish. Now I believe I'm using 10mm foam for this particular one because I needed it to be a thicker foam. I didn't want to use the 6mm. It wouldn't have been thick enough. So basically this was like some craft foam, high density craft foam that I picked up at like Joann's Fabric. I believe it was from the like Yaya Han line, and it's basically the thickness of the floor mat foam, but it's the same texture on each side. So there was no sanding, none of that. You don't have to worry about any of that. You just could use either side. So as you can see, doing a test fit, it's actually going to go on the bottom of the chest, which, like I said, will kind of push it away from the abdomen and give it a little bit like a thicker, fuller look. So right here, I'm basically using my heat gun to heat form and seal the foam just a little bit. You don't need to really do a lot of shaping for this particular piece, because it's just going to go right underneath the pec. So as you can see, just a little bit of a curvature, just to follow the line of the contour of the chest. And now that I got both pieces done, I'm using my trusty Zap-A-Gap glue, and I'm just going to glue them into place. Now the great thing about Zap-A-Gap is that it's super quick. I mean, and it works on almost any surface, even like oils, even oily surfaces. So it's a great glue. My friend Matches Malone basically put me onto this Zap-A-Gap years ago, and I've made sure I've never gone without it since. I almost can use it for almost the entire process of any of my builds. On the bigger pieces, or like in pieces that I need a really cleaner seam, I'll go with the contact cement. But for like gluing pretty much everything else together, I could use just the Zap-A-Gap. So now I'm just basically gluing that second piece into place. But you could tell that already, can't you? So both of the pieces in, and that's what I was talking about as like a lifter. So that's actually gonna push the material away from my chest. It's just a little bit. Now if I really wanted to exaggerate it that much more, I probably would put two of those pieces, which would bring probably the chest away from your body almost about an inch. So right here, I'm in the process of gluing the rubber mat that is going to be basically the front part of the torso with the abdomen. So you basically got to find a really good spot, then make sure you line this up properly. You got to kind of remember, I'm gluing high enough where it's going to kind of wrap from the upper portion of the inside of the chest, and it's going to kind of wrap down to the bottom. Now, being that I added that filler piece, it was a little bit trickier to get the glue to be flush on the bottom, but we got past it. So I've basically been using this rubber mat since my Arkham Batman build, which was pretty much my first Batman build and like major like superhero armor build. And my friend Sean, he was using cloth, but I wanted something a little bit sturdier than cloth, so I was able to use this rubber mat. It was something that I used on a previous build for my Thunderblade, but I for whatever reason, I was like, I don't know if I want to use this again. But it did come in handy, and I was able to actually use it again, and I've been using that particular style mat since on my armor builds. It just kind of helps to keep everything in place. It's a nice snug fit, and it maintains a really good shape. Now here I'm in the process of making the spinal guard, or the spinal armor, So this will be like the spine portion right here. Once again, most of these templates are based off of my friend Sean Zhang's videos, so they were really good as a base, and then all the other extra details that go onto the build are pretty much designed by myself, obviously based off of the character from the show. But you know what they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And if I find that style of the spinal guard and the rear shoulder blades, like I said, once again, big shout out to my friend Sean Zhang for his video tutorials, because they, like I said, they really were instrumental in helping me to find a really good path onto the way I would like to build things. So now right here I'm just basically tracing out the rear shoulder blades, and then these things will get cut out, heat shaped, and glued to the back spinal portion. Now you always want to make sure that you have a nice sharp razor when you're cutting out your foam. If you don't have a sharp razor, it will basically rip through the foam instead of giving you a nice clean cut. And nice clean cuts are really important, because if you don't get it with the razor, then you have to go back with like a Dremel sanding tool and sand down all those edges. And the last thing you want is a bunch of EVA sawdust, or sand dust all over the place. And if you don't have a sharp blade, you should get yourself like a sharpening stone, or you can go to, I found Lowe's had a little sharpening device you could use, or you could find some online, because a sharp blade is very important when it comes to clean work. So right here I'm basically adding some heat to the foam. It's actually going to do two things. It's going to seal the foam, or help seal the foam. It will close all its pores up, and it makes it warm enough to manipulate and to put some shape into. Now, anybody who's just starting out working with foam, you can find that foam is really pliable once you put enough heat to it. So you can get compound curves, you can get all types of curves if you put enough work into it. And the shape usually will stay in its place, and that's a really cool thing. I really enjoy that. Now, there are some people that might have to put pieces together to get certain shapes. I found I can get a pretty decent curve off of a single sheet of foam, but where needed, you can always like cut little darts out and glue them together to help reinforce your shape. So right here I am heating it up some more. As you can see, there's a smoke or vapors coming from the EVA, so I am actually wearing my respirator. So you want to make sure that you have really good adequate ventilation when you start heating up this foam, because you don't know what type of chemicals are coming out of it when you heat it up. So make sure you like open window, AC on, respirator, or if you could do it outside, that's even better, but make sure definitely that you are wearing a respirator, because as you can see, there's all types of smoke coming off of that. Safety first. So here I am, just basically putting a little bit of shape into the rear of the shoulder blade, and going back to the trusty Zap-A-Gap, which I will be gluing the rear shoulder blades onto the spinal portion of the armor. Once again, I don't get paid to mention the Zap-A-Gap, but it is a heck of a product. It's one of those things where I think, unfortunately, you can only get it online. I usually go on eBay and order it, but it's definitely worth it. It's a little pricier than like normal super glue, but I think I always get 4-ounce bottles, and I go through it pretty quickly because I will use it on almost the entire build. But like when putting my chest piece together, I made sure that I wanted really tight, clean seams. So for that, I would go with the contact cement. So there you go, guys. That's the end of this video. So if you enjoy my work, please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you know when I put out my next video. And as I end all my videos, remember, hashtag I cosplay my way. And you can too. And you should too. Peace.